Good morning, everyone. The word we're going to be studying this morning is depraved. I want to explain to you, first of all, that some of the words that we find in Scripture when we're studying aren't words that we're necessarily going to like. There are pieces of Scripture that are also very harsh, and these are things that we need to keep in mind when we're studying. The word depraved comes from the Greek, which is adokimo. This is a mind that is full of corruption or evil, especially. This is a kind of mind that cannot make moral or sound judgments. The King James Version gives the word reprobate. And with that being said, we're going to look over the Scripture. And the Scripture that we're looking at today is Romans chapter 1, verses 28 through 30. Paul begins, "And just as they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer, God gave them over to a depraved mind, to do those things which are not proper, being filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, unmerciful, and although they know the ordinances of God, that those who practice such things are worthy of death. They don't not only do the same, but they also give hearty approval to those who practice." Keeping this in mind, the study of Scripture is something that's very serious, and it should be taken seriously at all times. And when studying, again, we come across words that we may not like what they mean when we find them. And this is something that we need to keep in mind anytime that we're studying. In this passage, we see that the people of this area are refusing every good thing that represents God. And keeping this in mind, we live in a world today that isn't a lot unlike the world in those days. The world today is filled with exactly like what we're speaking of here. Yes, and it's been over 2,000 years since Scripture was first penned, but corruption of the mind still remains, unfortunately, and sin still remains, and sin still exists. This today is practiced by politicians, the media, and yes, sadly, even folks who are members of the household of faith. But folks, we live in a world of hurting people and the lost people. People who are slaves to sin. But there is hope for those people. There is hope for all, and that hope is Jesus Christ. I leave you with one last piece of Scripture, and it's Luke chapter 10, verse 2. And this is Jesus speaking. "And he was saying to them, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, beseech the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." I hope that you're willing to be that person that will go out and seek the lost. I hope that you're the person that will be willing to go out and take the great commission that Jesus says in Matthew 28, 18 through 20. Which is, "Go ye therefore into all nations, teaching them the gospel, making disciples of them. And as you're making disciples of them, you're baptizing them. And as you're baptizing them, you're teaching them. But you're not just teaching them to teach them. You're teaching them to do the same things that you've been commanded." And Jesus, he gives us the faith that we can have. He gives us the trust that we can have in him, because he says, "In all that time, I will be with you always." This is a great, great message, folks, that you need to hear. This is a great, great message. The gospel is something that every person on earth needs to hear. I ask that you go out today and be blessed and be a blessing to everybody that you come across. I hope you have a great day, and thanks again.